Before she was properly introduced into Dragon Ball Minus, the Dragon Ball community was fascinated with who Goku's mother was for many years. So much so that fans thought Fasha had had a fling with Bardock and that Goku was her kid, even though that never really made any sense. But as it turns out, Gine is just a normal woman who works in a meat distribution. She's not strong, not designed in an over-sexualized manner, and never had any iconic or memorable moments. But it is her existence that has brought up an unanswered question in our minds. Who is Vegeta's mother? What would she look like? And what sort of life did she had before Planet Vegeta exploded? Well, for starters, after digging through the internet, there seems to be only one nugget of information about her. Translated by the reliable Herms98, in Daishenju 7, it is revealed that King Vegeta married his queen around age 731. So from this, we know that she was an actual wife and not some random fling on Planet Vegeta that many have speculated. But conceptually, there is a legitimate reason why Vegeta's mother is much more interesting than Gine, even though we have virtually no info on her at all. The reason being is that from a social point of view, Vegeta's family line was much more relevant than Goku's family line on Planet Vegeta, and with her status as an actual Saiyan Queen, learning about her can help us get a deeper understanding as to how Saiyan culture works, and how Saiyan men and women are treated differently. And based off of a few more statements that talked about Saiyan culture, it's more likely than not that Vegeta's mother was a very strong Saiyan woman. When you look at King Vegeta's status as a super high-value male in Saiyan society, he literally has his pick of the litter when it comes to mating, let alone marrying. And we can be pretty sure that Saiyans don't have any form of birth control, so the purpose of sex on Planet Vegeta is more about mating than it is for pleasure and intimacy for humans. Because of this, for King Vegeta to select her as his wife says that there's something special about her as compared to other female Saiyans. Because when we look at Saiyan society, there is an obsession with natural battle power, and because your status is directly linked to your fighting ability and your class as a baby, it's more likely than not that King Vegeta sought out to have a very strong offspring, and in order to do so he needed to mate with someone whom he considered strong. And with the various amount of women he could have chosen from, it's more likely than not that Vegeta's mother was selected for breeding. This would also explain why Vegeta's long-lost brother Tarble was casted away. He is a genetic embarrassment to King Vegeta's patrilineal bloodline, because in real life, just because you have athletic parents or two parents that are smart, doesn't mean your kid is gonna be athletic or smart. But in contrast, the character of Tarble also highlights the flaw of Saiyan culture. It overlooks that some weak Saiyans from birth, like Bardock's lineage, can become great warriors with time, effort, and a plot that writes them to be better than anybody else. So if Tarble were to train with Vegeta with all of what he knows now in the Dragon Ball universe, who knows what he would be able to accomplish if he worked really hard, just based off of being in the right place at the right time. You see, Saiyans live in what we would call a meritocracy, where their merit is their fighting ability, and the greater your fighting ability, the higher your status in society. So in order to become a king, you would have to prove yourself like King Vegeta did in the wars against the Tuffles. This is what we would call a real alpha, going back to the primal days of mankind when the Alpha was the tough guy that led his group while the Omega was the guy at the bottom. And when you see King Vegeta gloating about how his kid is so powerful and how he resented Broly for his ability, just goes to show how much social value is based off of power. In order to maintain power in Saiyan society, power is everything. So Paragus and Broly posed a threat directly to King Vegeta and his lineage. Paragus himself may not have been much of a fighter, but his son could challenge Vegeta's lineage for the throne one day by force, and King Vegeta was not having that. But going back to Vegeta's mother, another reason why we can almost guarantee that she was a powerful character is because Saiyan men are attracted to very strong women, as said by Goku and Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super. So when you combine this innate attraction with King Vegeta's status, we can imagine Vegeta's mother was some sort of battle-hardened Saiyan woman. Very similar to who Fasha is, but strong-willed and powerful enough to get the attention of King Vegeta, who obviously has a lot of access to many different Saiyan women, as compared to a character like Bardock who has limited options. And as a side note, you must know that King Vegeta actually marrying what we would call Queen Vegeta for the sake of this video is a very important thing, because if we go back to the beginning of what we would call Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta and Nappa were having a conversation about breeding, and it was basically mentioned that one of the reasons as to why Vegeta did not want to breed with humans at that time was because he didn't want to have offspring that were stronger than himself. Now this goes to show that King Vegeta obviously saw his wife as more than just breeding material, and something a little bit more similar along the lines of what Bardock had in his relationship with Gine. But at the same time, you could also say maybe Vegeta and Nappa were saying that because their entire race was completely eradicated, so they didn't really have any other options to really choose from. And when you look throughout Dragon Ball history, with the exception of Goten in Dragon Ball GT who was with Valise, every single major Saiyan has been with a strong woman of some sort. Goku is with Chi-Chi, who is a very strong fighter in her own right. Vegeta is with Bulma, who's not necessarily a fighter, but she's very strong-minded and is very well determined to get things done. And then you also have a character like Gohan, who is with Videl, who is very strong in her own right as a human, and also Trunks and Mai. And even though Mai doesn't have super powerful abilities, she's a survivor in her own right and is extremely mentally tough. And it's conversations like this that have the shipping community mixing Android 18 with Gohan or Vegeta, because theoretically, Android 18 would be a great mate for a powerful Saiyan character over Krillin. That's not to say Krillin isn't a strong character, but it just seems a lot more fitting, and why the community is so fascinated with Android 18 being with all these Saiyan men. Now as we move on to actual design and appearance, there's been a lot of talk and fanfiction about what Vegeta's mother would look like. Some draw her in more of a warrior type style, and others draw her as she is depicted with a more upper class and regal look, and not necessarily the fighting type. But when we consider that there's been virtually nothing ever revealed about who she is, let alone her design, it's very unlikely that she was the regal Queen Vegeta that people think she is in fanfiction. Because if she was a powerful figure in Saiyan society to the likes of the Queen of England, she would have been seen at some point with King Vegeta in the numerous times that he was in the throne room, or if she was that relevant, she would have been mentioned. Therefore, we can make an educated guess that her design would theoretically be more up the alley of the warrior type, since she probably had next to no power in Saiyan culture and was just strictly married to King Vegeta, but that actual marriage didn't have power associated with it. So even though she is married to King Vegeta, it makes less sense that she had political power and dressed in a royal way. And when it comes to genetics, Vegeta is basically a carbon copy of King Vegeta, similar to Bardock and Goku, and similar to Goku and Goten. Therefore, Vegeta obviously wouldn't have gotten any visible genetics from his mother, and she probably would have had a completely original design that looks nothing like Vegeta, since King Vegeta's genetics are completely dominant in this Dragon Ball situation. So as of now, we have answered what type of Saiyan she probably was, and which one of her designs is most realistic. This now leaves the question of what was her life like before Planet Vegeta was destroyed. So let's test our minds and create the most logical headcanon that actually makes sense, and search for what seems to be the most realistic of how her life could have been. This means that King Vegeta and Queen Vegeta weren't married for that long because they only had 2 very young children. Unless Dragon Ball pulls another long-lost sibling act like they did with Tights and Bulma, and add another Vegeta offspring into Dragon Ball's future. Either way, at some point, either on a dangerous mission or during a war, King Vegeta made contact with her and had respect for the warrior that she was. Then, one thing led to another and they ended up with 2 kids. But unfortunately, Planet Vegeta's existence came to an end, and this means that Vegeta's mother probably would have had more kids with King Vegeta had she not died in the explosion. And when you consider that a pregnancy hinders a woman's ability to work, let alone fight, she was probably a retired fighter by the time she was giving birth to Vegeta and Tarble. But the question is now left up to you, so put aside all of that fanfiction garbage. Based on the Dragon Ball story that we know, who do you think Vegeta's mother, also known by fans as Queen Vegeta, actually was. But as you're in the mood for Mother's Day themed videos, definitely check out Is Android 18 the Perfect Wife? And if you want some what ifs, check out What If Yamcha and Bulma Never Broke Up? Or What If Goku Never Married Chi-Chi? And until next time, stay cool and stay safe, my friends.